So a very warm welcome to this afternoon session in the second workshop on signals and systems. I'm very happy to have all of you participate very enthusiastically. So in the first session, we had 4 presentations and all of them reflected a great deal of enthusiasm on the part of the participants. And they also resulted in some very relevant discussion that followed. I'm very happy that everybody is participating with such enthusiasm and commitment. We wish that this continues right till the very end of the workshop. So now, without further ado, let us go on to the subsequent presentations. So we'll now have a presentation by group 4, by group 7 on lecture 5. Yes, there is a question from Dr. Syed Salim. Yes, Dr. Syed.
Which type of question you want, sir?
What type of question in the sense?
Means what is your question, sir?
No, I think you had raised your hand, no? You wanted to ask something or say something?
No, sir, no, sir.
Oh, then you must have done it by mistake. Also, anyway, it's a, it's a fortuitous thing. I think it's serendipitous. I think you were not able to introduce yourself yesterday. Is that right?
No. I am able to do it. Here, some with the connectivity problem. So, myself with Dr. Syed Salim Syed, assistant professor in EC department, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Technology, Port Blair.
Okay, very nice, very good. So good. So you're able to now join today. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So good. So in that case, we welcome Dr. Saeed, and we.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
Good to have you in the workshop. And you're in Port Blair, is it, Andaman?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So how is the network connectivity there?
Network connectivity is not good, sir. But from some places I go there. Then here is my colleague surrounding. I went there and search the network. Then I can access the internet connectivity here, sir.
Okay,
not
very
good.
good, very good. So we really appreciate you making such an effort to join. I know it must be difficult to join from that remote location, but we welcome you and we, we look forward to your participation. Yes.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, thanks, sir.
All right. So now we'll welcome. Yes, there is a question from Dr. Ramar.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I want to. Sir, please let us know the present schedule for tomorrow, sir.
Okay, we'll discuss that. So what we'll do is maybe after we have a couple of presentations, then I'll outline the assignments for tomorrow also. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Very good. So now let us invite group 7 to make a presentation on lecture 5. So group 7.
Hello.
Hello.
I am from group 7, but actually our team member Harish was supposed to present. I think he has joined. He will present.
Yeah, he has just joined, I think. So. Harish, are you there now? Okay, so he is just sorting out his audio. So meanwhile, while he sorts out his audio problem, are there any questions on the morning session or any comments or any discussion that you want?
Hello, sir. Sir, graded activity. I would like to know about the graded activity.
Yes.
Sir, we couldn't submit the graded activity 2 and 3, but it is already closed.
Pardon me?
The graded activity deadline for activity 2 and 3 were 11:30. We couldn't submit it, sir. Is it possible?
Yeah, no, we'll extend it. We'll extend it.
Okay.
We'll extend it. Yeah. So is Harish ready now with this presentation? Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
This may not be related to today's lecture, maybe related to the previous one.
Okay.
Sir, when do we have to consider the absolute summability and when do we have to consider the other one, sir, that is square summability? We have to check for convergence.
You see, when you want to test the stability of a system, when you want to test the stability of a linear shift invariant system, then you must check effectively for the absolute summability of its impulse response with a discrete system. And square summability relates to energy. So if you want to check for finite energy, that is essentially a statement of square summability. This is all for discrete sequences and discrete time signals and systems. Right? So,
okay.
All right. So is Harish Bhatt ready now?
Sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. very good. Yes, Ashish, yes.
If you allow, I will just have a quick doubt I want you to resolve.
Yes, yes. Okay, sure,
Uh,
certainly.
my doubt is that when you are considering a pulse and an impulse
Yes,
and dealing them with respect to the Fourier transform, okay?
yes,
So impulse gives you a flat response comprising of all frequencies starting from minus infinity to plus infinity.
yes, yes,
And when you are dealing with a pulse, okay,
yes,
I
yes,
consider a pulse to be a summation of something like one impulse at say t0, and then there is a negative impulse at say at t equal to t1, and in between there is a flat DC signal. Am I wrong?
that may not be a correct view, because in a pulse there are no impulses, right? A pulse
Okay,
has no
okay.
impulses in it.
Sir, at t equal to 0, if I assume it has no rise time, then how do you interpret it, sir?
No, so there is, see, a practical pulse would not really have a brick wall characteristic.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? A practical
Yes, sir.
pulse might rise smoothly, maybe also somewhat oscillatory, and then might decay smoothly. That's also a pulse. That's also a pulse, right? And if you look at the Fourier transform, that pulse, it may not be exactly the sync pattern, but it will be something close to that. It will be
Yes, sir.
smoother, it will fall off faster.
Yes, sir.
In fact, it will fall off faster than the sync pattern.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. So now we'll have Harish Bhatt making his presentation on lecture 5.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon.
Thank you for this opportunity of participating in 2 workshops back to back. There are around 2-3 days gap in between. So actually, I learned a lot mainly from part 1. So hoping the same thing here also, because a good beginning has been made today morning. So my topic today is so introduction part is already over yesterday. My introduction and all. So
Yes.
I'll directly start with the topic. So topic is sampling of signals with Fourier transform.
Very good. Very good.
So first I will introduce sampling process. So it is a basic operation or first operation you have to do when we are converting continuous time signal to discrete time signal. So in this topic I am going to explain so what we are going to do in sampling and how we are going to do it, and what are the requirements. So these are the main things I am going to cover here. So as we know, sampling is multiplication of a continuous time signal with the shifted impulses, shifted unit impulses. So if we take shifted unit impulses as p of t, and if continuous time signal is x of t, so just by multiplying x of t with the p of t, we'll get sampled discrete series and discrete sequences. So if we have to do it in frequency domain, so first we have to find out the Fourier transform of x of t. If Fourier transform is possible to find out, or if it is Fourier transformable, then we can have sampling possible, because there are some signals which we are not going to discuss in deep. So there are some signals which don't have Fourier transform. So such signals we cannot sample, mainly because Fourier transforms are out of bound, or we can say not defined. So such kind of signals we cannot find out, we cannot sample. So mainly if the Fourier transform is possible, then we can say it is a convolution operation between frequency Fourier transform signal, or input signal Fourier transform convert with the Fourier transform of the impulses, shifted impulses. So this is the normal operation we are going to do in sampling. So as I told, there are some mathematical expressions. If suppose the input signal, for example, simple sequence like continuous time signals like continuous time signal like cos 2 pi by t, 2 pi ft plus some phase. If you want to sample this signal to discrete sequences, so as I told you, we have to multiply with the shifted impulses, shifted unit impulses. So then the output sequence will be, after sampling, will be having frequencies at f0, which is the actual frequency of the signal, as well as frequencies at multiples of the sampling frequencies. If suppose fs is sampling frequency, we will be having
So, Hari, are you
the
making
sample
a
signal at
presentation? Just a minute.
t. So present is not available because my desktop audio is not activated, sir.
Okay.
Desktop audio is not activated, so I am doing
Okay,
it with my
okay.
mobile.
So you're not making any presentation.
So is it okay, sir? Like I'm explaining in a theory. In simple theory, I'm explaining. So is it okay, sir? Yeah, okay. So as I told, the input signal, when we sample with the sample, so we have to multiply with the shifted unit impulses. So when we multiply the input signal with continuous time signal with the shifted unit impulses, so it will produce frequencies at f0. F0 is the actual signal frequency. So after sampling, we'll be having frequencies at fs minus f0, as well as fs plus f0, and multiples of fs minus f0 plus f0, like 2fs minus f0, 2fs minus plus f0, 3fs minus f0, 3fs plus f0. All these frequencies will be having a sampled sequence in a Fourier domain. So main thing we have to follow here is what should be the sampling frequency, that we have to find out first. So if we take the mathematical expression of the sampled sequence, as I told, it will be having frequencies fs minus f0, f0, and fs plus f0. So we should ensure that there is no overlapping of frequencies. First frequency and the signal frequency should be properly separable. Like I can say fs minus f0 should be greater than f0. So with respect to that, I can say the minimum sampling frequency should be fs should be greater than 2f0. So this is the minimum requirement for a non-confusable recovery of the signal from samples. So suppose, for example, if the input signal is having a frequency of 1 kilohertz, so then sampling frequency should be greater than at least 2f0, like 2 kilohertz, at least greater than 2 kilohertz. If it is even 2 kilohertz, we cannot recover the signal from its samples. So, for example, a simple thing we can take is 3 kilohertz. If we take sampling frequency as 3 kilohertz with the original signal frequency at 1 kilohertz, so we'll be having original signal at 1 kilohertz and the sampled signals at f0, 1 kilohertz as well as 2 kilohertz, like that. So there is a separation between 1 kilohertz and 2 kilohertz, hence we can recover the signal from its samples. So this is the minimum requirement. There are some theorems associated with it, so which subsequent faculties will handle. So minimum requirement I can say in theoretical now, that is fs should be greater than at least 2f0. So with that, I will finish this presentation here. So mainly what I covered is what is sampling, how we can do that in time domain, how we can do it in frequency domain. So can we sample a signal which is not having Fourier transform, and if possible, can we do it in with the signals with frequency Fourier transform, and also so what is the minimum frequency? So these are the topics covered here. So I'm very sorry, sir, for not being able to show the documents and all, like notes and all. So because of the limitation of my network as well as audio problem with the system, so it is actually repeating, but I try to solve it, the audio problem with the system, but I am not able to. So sorry for the inconvenience for the viewers. So that is the end of my presentation.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Professor Harish, and we appreciate your having made an attempt in spite of your network difficulties. Good. So any comments on the presentation?
Yes, sir.
So one comment I have, Harish, is that it's not correct to say that you cannot sample signals who don't have a Fourier transform.
Yeah, correct. Yes,
so
sir.
nothing stops
Yes,
you from sampling any signal. The question is, can you reconstruct the signal from its samples? And if so, how? That would be the question. Yes. So that is the word of caution. Also, yes, I mean, in general, here it is okay because you had network difficulties, but in general, if you wish to teach a class of students, you would have to illustrate this with some figures and diagrams or equations. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes,
oh,
sir.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions or comments on his presentation? All right. In that case, we'll proceed to the presentation of lecture 6 by group 8. So is group 8 here?
Yes, sir, we are here.
Oh, very good afternoon.
Very good afternoon to all of you, sir. So this is the part 2 co-workshop on pedagogy workshop on signals and systems. And this is group 8. Members are Nandita Shannal, Jayanti E, Amresh Kumar Sahu and Tanmay Mojumdar. We are, today we will be discussing on sampling theorem. Though a lot of things has been discussed over this topic till now from the morning. It's a very short presentation we are making. So since we will be dealing with sampling theorem, we just this is a brief introduction for it, that to find out a discrete time signal from an analog signal, we need to sample it. And example is that audio CDs that we play in our music systems are recorded by continuous sampling of incoming audio signal and are written on the CD as a sequence of digital data sequence. Now, so analog to digital conversion of signals requires 3 steps. That is, first one is sampling. Now, what is sampling? Is a reduction of continuous time signal to a discrete time signal, and if continuous time signal is given by xt, it is then nt is the discrete version of the signal, which is equal to that the value of xt at t equal to nt, where the nt, capital T is the sampling time, and it is at nth sampling time. At nth sampling time. Here we have let us consider a simple mechanical switch. If the switch is open, this signal xt, it is being fed through the switch. It cannot go to the output, so the output is equal to 0. But when this switch is closed, this xt can go to the next side, the other side, and this x star t is called the sampled version of the signal xt. So when so suppose this xt is represented by this waveform, and the switch is closed at an interval, closed and opened at a regular interval of time, capital T, then we can get the sampled version of this signal in this form. All of you can see that the switch is not, when it is closed, it will remain closed for a delta second of time. Delta second of time it is closed, and then it is opened, so the output is 0 at the output side, and then again the switch is closed and it is remained closed for delta seconds of time. Since it is not an ideal switch, but we have to consider an ideal switch where delta is tending towards 0. That means for an ideal switch, the switch will momentarily close and open. That means it's instantaneously opening and closing, instantaneously opening and closing. So in that case, when delta is very less, we get such kind of see, actually I have not drawn these lines. All the lines, those are the values of sampled values of the original signal xt, and this signal is the discrete signal. This signal is the discrete signal what we get after sampling it through an ideal sampler. Now, our objective of this to study this theorem is that suppose we are provided with such kind of discrete version of a continuous time signal, whether we will be able to reconstruct the signal to its original form. That is our objective to study. Is there any rule or is there anything which guides that how can we reconstruct a signal from its sampled version? Now, in the previous lectures, we have seen that let us consider this is the discrete version which is we have got from the continuous time signal, and let us take this sinusoidal signal what already have been discussed, but still I am taking this case because this is a sampled version of the discrete signal. Now suppose my sampling time is such that we are getting one signal here and another signal is here and another signal is here like this. So my sampling time t is this much. So this red are the sample version. Then it will be very, very difficult for a person to reconstruct the signal, sinusoidal signal from this sampled version, because we will see there are the only one polarity unidirectional signal. So there are infinite number of possibilities of constructing this signal, that maybe it will be a step signal like that. Suppose we are having slightly near, we are having samples like this, then also suppose this sampling time is now it is less. So in that case, if we have sampled it like this, so in that case we can again see that we can predict that there will be a positive value and there will be a negative value. So this wave will be maybe it will be having an alternative values, but we cannot predict that it will be a sinusoid or it will be a square wave also. It will be it can be of square wave also. So that is the objective of studying the sampling theorem. Now, sampling theorem is mainly is the research work of these three scientists, that is Shannon, Whittaker, and Nyquist, and they have contributed a lot for formulating this theorem. And when a signal is sampled and there is a possibility to lose the information, as I told that for a sinusoid, if we sample it, if the sampling is such that we can only gather the positive samples, positive valued samples, we cannot reconstruct it at all. So this, and during the sampling process, lot of unwanted information may be clubbed with the actual useful data. So hence, this data, useless data is to be unwanted part of it is called imposters, and they are to be filtered out during the reconstruction. So when we want to, we have now we go to the sampling theorem part. Here we have to consider that we have to take in account that xt, a signal, must have its Fourier transform, and another thing we must consider that Fourier transform is non-zero only up to a maximum finite frequency fm, and that means the Fourier transform of this xt must be non-zero. It will be having some finite value up to a maximum finite frequency fm. So let us consider this figure. Let us come to this figure that this is the value of Fourier transform of xt, and this is finite for up to a finite maximum frequency FM and minus FM. So up to this is the band where the Fourier transform of the signal is finite, is non-zero, rather non-zero. So the sampling theorem states that a band limited signal is band limited to a maximum frequency FM can be perfectly reconstructed from its sample taken at a rate Fs equal Fs such that Fs is greater than 2 FM. That means if we want to reconstruct the signal from its sampled value, it must be kept in mind that our sampling frequency must be greater than the twice the maximum frequency present in the signal. Maximum frequency present in the signal. So from this, this is the figure that this is the Fourier transform of the signal, and this signal is being sampled at a rate. This signal is being sampled at a rate Fs. And I must mention now. Let us prove something, that is how to prove it, that sampling is a linear process. We have to assume that we have to take in account that sampling is linear process, and the net consequence of sampling spectrum is given by sum of contributions by individual spectral pieces. Consider a signal xt with Fourier transform xf. What I have shown in the figure, that is the Fourier transform part of xt, that is xf, and the signal is sampled at a frequency fs. Now, according to Nyquist sampling theorem, is that for complete reconstruction of the signal, the sampling frequency fs must be greater than 2 FM. Now, suppose it is not greater than 2 FM, then all the imposters, suppose it is Fs is less than 2 FM, then all the imposter will come closer, so close that it cannot be it will make a confusion, so that the original signal cannot be reconstructed, and there is a loss of useful data. So let us prove that Nyquist theorem, and for making that proof, let us consider that this sampling Fs is greater than 2 FM. Let us consider that Fs is greater than 2 FM. Now, this is there is a general point F1 we have taken, and up to a minus, there is also a minus F1, and we will consider this F1 with respect to this Fourier transform. Now, this F1 will vary up to 0 to FM, 0 towards this FM, up to FM, this F1 will vary. And since F1 will vary up to FM, so there will be similar imposters. There will be imposters which is which is drawn in this red color at integral multiple of the sampling frequencies. That means there is Fs, there are 2 Fs, like minus Fs, minus 2 Fs. In all these frequencies, we will get such type of F1 and minus F1, and these are all the imposters. And we have considered that Fs is greater than twice Fm. That we have considered. Now, let us, now again we will, this F1 will again have an imposter here at a frequency Fs plus F1, and this minus F1 will have the imposter at Fs minus F1. See, in similar manner, in sampling frequency minus Fs, these imposters will be at minus Fs plus F1 and minus Fs minus F1. Likewise, we will get the imposters at 2Fs, 3Fs, 4Fs, like that. Now, as this F1 is varying from 0 to Fm, so this 0 to Fm, this Fs minus F1, it will vary from this side. We can see that it will vary in this direction. So Fs minus F1 will vary from this direction, and since Fs minus F1, it will vary up to Fs minus Fm. It will vary up to Fs minus Fm. It will vary up to Fs minus Fm. And we can see that this Fs minus Fm is at this type of, in this point, and here it will be near this point. Since we have considered that Fs is greater than 2 Fm. Fs is greater than 2 Fm. Since Fs is greater than 2 Fm, then Fs minus Fm will be greater than Fm. That means this, from this mathematical consideration, we can see that I don't have this arrangement to write anything, so that's why slightly.
That's okay. It's coming out well.
So this, since Fs is greater than 2 Fm, then Fs minus Fm, this is mathematically, we can see that Fs minus Fm will be greater than Fm, and in the figure also we can see that this point is greater than Fm. This point is situated at a far position than Fm. That we can see from the figure also. So it can be seen that this Fs minus Fm will be slightly far from the Fm itself. Now, so this Fs greater than 2 Fm implies Fs minus Fm greater than Fm. The imposter frequency varies from Fs to Fs minus Fm. And the Nyquist criteria ensure that since Fs minus Fm is greater than Fm, the imposter frequency does not mix up with the actual data. That means if these imposters cannot mix up with the original data, right? So these imposters cannot mix up with the original data, and we can, if we want to separate out this original, if we want to separate out this original Fourier of original frequency response, if we want to filter it out, we have to filter it out from this region, so that these imposters can be filtered out and we can get the original spectrum. So likewise, so it is proved that if the sampling frequency is greater than 2 Fm, we can separate out the original spectrum from the, that is, we can reconstruct the original signal from sampled version. Now I have some small problem for all of you that consider a continuous time signal xt, which is equal to 5 sine 200 pi t. So what is the rate of fs at which the given signal is to be sampled to reconstruct this reconstruct it again? So what is that frequency? What should be the frequency?
So very good. So now the participants could answer in chat. Yes. So Professor Nandita, you have some answers in the chat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So actually, this you can see that I have to see the chat, right? Yes, it's greater than 200 hertz. That is one answer, and the other one greater than 400 hertz also will be the answer, because this problem must have two answers, because this is sine 2 pi omega. This is sine 2 pi ft. So f is 100 hertz. So since f is 100 hertz, fs must be greater than twice 100 hertz, twice of 100 hertz. That means it is 200 hertz, and also it will be, if it is 400 hertz, then also it will the signal can be reconstructed. So
Very
this is the answer. And here is another problem, that there is Lucy wants to sample a signal and chooses the
Can you make
sampling.
it full screen, Professor Nandita, can you make it full screen?
Yes, sir. Yes. So sampling frequency fs to be 20 kilohertz. What can be the possible frequencies which Lucy can find in the signal? So what are the possible frequencies?
Very good. So you have some answers in the chat.
Yes, sir. Yes. So these are the answers. Because in the sampling theorem, sir, in the sampling theorem, there is no greater than equal to. So that is, we know that if it is equal also, then also we can reconstruct. But in the sampling theorem, that is not there. Fs is greater than 2fm is there. But it is it will be fs greater or equal to 2fm?
You see, if it is equal to 2 FM, you can have the bad luck of sampling at a zero crossing. So you see, suppose you take the frequency FM and you happen to sample it at a zero crossing.
Okay.
Then you will be sampling only at zero crossings every time. That means you will get all zero samples.
Okay.
So the equality cannot be permitted, because you might have the bad luck of sampling at the zero crossings.
So 10 hertz will not be the answer. So it will be 5 and 9 hertz. Okay.
Yes, 5 and 9. That is right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
Yes. So thank you very much, Professor Nandita. Very nicely made presentation. And you can see that Professor Nandita took a lot of trouble to organize her material very well and to present it very, very effectively, very articulately, and also construct some exercises which very beautifully demonstrated the concept that she presented in her lecture. So very well done. Thank you so much, Professor Nandita. And
Yes,
now we can take some questions on her presentation or any comments or observations if you have.
So this time Professor Jayanti is there, but
Yes.
in this session she is unable to join because of some college related work. So that's why.
No, that's fine. It's very nice to have you present. It's very
Sir,
well
I have
done.
a question, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, my question is about Nyquist theorem, sir.
Yes.
So people say that Nyquist theorem is always not applicable. When we have a sub-Nyquist criterion fails, we go for compressive sensing or compressive sampling. Can you comment about compressive sensing or compressive sampling, sir?
Yes, yes. You see, in compressive sensing, what are you doing? You are trying to find an optimal basis for the signal. So you are trying to see, when you are talking about the Nyquist sampling theorem, it is essentially using a Fourier basis. So you are using a generic piece of a priori information about the signal, namely that the signal is band limited. That means it has a Fourier transform, and the Fourier transform is non-zero only up to an upper limit of frequency, which is FM, let us say. And then, the sampling theorem tells you that you can reconstruct provided you have sampled at more than twice this maximum frequency. Now, in compressive sensing, you are trying to find out a basis which suits the signal. And if you can do that, then you can represent even more efficiently. So, in a way, in compressed sensing, what you are trying to do is to bring in more a priori information, which saves you of some measurement. And that's why you can do sub-Nyquist. So when people say sub-Nyquist, you are really saying put in more, look for more a priori information. Is that all right? Is that
Yes, sir.
clear? Yeah. Any other questions or comments or observations? So Professor Marathi has a comment. Professor Marathi, you can also vocalize your comment.
Just a minute, sir. Yeah. Hello.
Yes. Go on.
Regarding the double rate sampling, you are referring to that if we are bad luck, if it's bad luck that we may get 0 samples always.
Yes.
But I would like to expand it further. Even if we get, what will happen is that if we sample any sinusoid at a double rate, then all the samples will be of equal value because it exactly comes on the same phase point. And irrespective whether means we can have 3 volts as sample value for a sinusoidal of 5 volts amplitude, or even it can be for 10 volts amplitude.
Yes,
so
yes.
From samples we can only get information that the sinusoid is of not more than that sample value. That's what limited information we can get, and all other except that all other information remains hidden. Means if I sample, if my sample values all equal are of 3 volts, then sinusoid can be of any magnitude from plus minus from 3 volts to infinity. That is the conclusion.
Yeah, but you see, if you happen to sample the sinusoid at a non-zero point, then you would get a square wave. No, then if you do this hold, or if you would have a train of impulses of opposite polarity.
No. If we exact double, no square wave. It is of same value, sir. It's double frequency.
No.
No, sorry. Yeah. So not plus minus. So I just made a mistake. It's plus minus this one.
Yes, plus minus.
Plus 3 minus 3. So that would be because of a sinusoid of plus minus plus 5 plus.
Yes.
Then
5 plus minus 5.
Fundamentally, you would have the frequency of the original sinusoid.
Maybe it will look like a square wave. You can also conclude that it will be a
it would be a train of impulses with opposite polarities. One positive, one negative. So it's fundamentally will be equal to the original sine wave. It's fundamentally equal. To
and amplitude information will get hidden. Completely.
Amplitude information would be lost. Yeah, but I mean, right. Very good. Very nice. Okay, very nice. So, any other questions or comments? All right. In that case, we are very happy to come to the end of the first cycle of presentations. And as somebody suggested, before we go on to the second cycle, let me first make an assignment of the third cycle right away. Is that fine? So just as a bit of, it will give us a little bit of a deviation, kind of little bit of a change in the presentation and in the sequence of things. So let's go back to the course. Now, I want to make an assignment of the third cycle. We'll begin with the second cycle of presentations very shortly. But before I do that, let me make an assignment of the third cycle immediately. So let me now present the course itself. So now we have, by the way, let us check. Is any member of group 5 here today, please? So I'll just call out the names. Amar Dam, Professor Amar Dam, Professor Parchandekar, Professor Patil, Ajay Patil, and Professor Geeta Lakshmi. Any of them, and also Professor Jayanti KB. I repeat, Professor Jayanti KB, Professor Sai Geeta Lakshmi, Professor Amar Dum, Professor Sanjay Kumar Parchandekar and Professor Ajay Patil. Any of them present today? No, looks like none of them are present. Let's take group 6 as well. Professor Deepti Sakre from MIT Academy of Engineering, Pune, Professor Shashikant Sahare, Professor Chandrakant Pol, and Professor Mohit Kumar, and Professor Syed Salim Saeed. I think Professor Syed Salim Saeed is present today. Am I right? Okay, I can't hear any response. So in that case, we'll still work with the groups that we have. Okay, so now let me go to the course again. Now, then we had come up to lecture 12 in our assignments yesterday. So now let us go to lecture. So lecture 13 will be taken by group 1. Is that fine, group 1?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Lecture 14 will be taken by group 2. Is that okay, group 2?
Yes, sir.
And then group 3 would take lecture 15. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
And group 4 would do lecture 16.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then we have group 7, which will do lecture 17. Is that fine, group 7?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And finally, group 8 will do lecture 18. Is that fine, group 8?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, very good. So that is the third cycle. And then the fourth cycle will be lecture 19 will be done by group 1. Is that fine, group 1?
Yes.
Okay, and then lecture 20 by group 2. Is that okay, group 2? And lecture 21 by group 3. Is that fine, group 3?
Okay, sir.
And group 4 will do lecture 22.
Yes.
Is that fine? And then group 7 will do lecture 23.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then finally group 8 will do lecture 24. Is that fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very good. So we'll go up to the fourth cycle. Let us see if time permits after that, but let's at least get to the fourth cycle. So I think, we must made an assignment up to the fourth cycle. I'll just quickly repeat for your benefit the third and fourth cycles, so you can again note it down. So we had group 1 doing lecture 13, group 2
Yes, sir.
doing lecture 14, group 3 doing lecture 15, and
Yes.
group 4 doing lecture 16, followed by group 7 doing lecture 17 and group 8 doing lecture 18. Then we have again in the fourth cycle, group 1 doing lecture 19,
Yes,
group
sir.
2 doing lecture 20, group 3 doing lecture 21, and group 4 doing lecture 22, group 7 doing lecture 23, and finally lecture 24 being done by group 8. So we are going up to here in cycle 4. So now I would stop presenting, and then I now very warmly move on to the second cycle of presentations, and I'm very happy to welcome group 1 to make its next presentation.
Thank you, sir. I'm Hemangi presenting for Group 1.
Very good. Welcome, Professor Hemangi.
So, good afternoon to all of you. And it is my privilege to present in front of all of you. We are from Group 1, Professor Marathe and myself, Hemangi Kulkarni. We are presenting for lecture 7 in the course. And it contains ideal and practical reconstructor. So, as Professor Nandita nicely explained the procedure of sampling, we are moving further. Just for the continuity, I will discuss that we can represent the band limited signal perfectly from the reconstructed samples when the samples are taken at the frequency greater than twice the maximum frequency from the original signal. Okay, and when we sample, as Professor Nandita told, that the linear process is there. That's why we get sampling. In sampling, we get multiple copies of the original spectrum. They are located at the multiples of sampling frequency. So, in the reconstruction, what we want? In the reconstruction, we want conversion from discrete time to continuous time. We have to move back. So where we need this? Wherever we employ the sampling, most of the time we need to get back the signal, reconstructed back the signal, like in CD, DVDs, and in digital transmission techniques, switching techniques, and digital signal processing techniques. We need reconstruction very accurately. In the reconstruction process, when we want to fully reconstruct the original signal, we need a system which should be shift invariant and that retains the original spectrum, and it removes the copies, it removes the imposters, cuts off the copies at multiple frequencies. So we can observe here from -FM to FM is the part to be retained, which is actually the which will give us the reconstructed signal, or we can easily reconstruct from this, and we have to remove these multiple copies which are at the multiples of Fs. Then for achieving this process, we can use a filter. Okay, so we can pass this sampled signal through linear shift invariant system with the frequency response which is indicated by H of F. So here we can observe that when we have to pass that, so like this, when we have the response like this, then we can reconstruct it from the rectangular filter, which is now we are mentioning with the cutoff FM plus delta and minus FM minus delta, which is very small amplitude less than FM and very small amplitude, frequency greater than FM. So why we need this? Again, there is a question which is addressed in Professor Gadre's 7th lecture. So I am also considering that. So why do we need to sample at greater than twice FM? So that just, again, that is somewhat repetition. Again, Professor Nandita told the same thing, that there may be tonal components which are existing at FM, and we don't want to lose them. That's why we are going for frequency higher than twice FM. So that the zero crossings that just now we discussed, okay, that we have to avoid, and we want to retain the tonal components. Okay, then we'll move for the reconstruction process actually. So in the reconstruction, we have to retain the original spectrum and cut all the rest. So we will pass that signal through to ensure that the copies are completely outside our window through which that is the frequency response of our filter. We want FM plus delta is less than Fs minus FM. So this we want, and we can go for this diagram. FM plus delta may be here, and that should be less than Fs minus FM. The difference should be retained, and the should have the cutoff frequency beyond FM. That's what margin we are considering, so that to retain the tonal component. Then how to get the impulse response of ideal filter, which is used for reconstruction of the sampled signal. So just we can take the Fourier inverse Fourier transform. We know that we want a rectangular signal. We want amplitude 1 as indicated in this diagram. We want amplitude 1 for this frequency range. So we can take the inverse Fourier transform. We know we all are aware of transform equation, that is integration extending from minus infinity to infinity h of f e raised to j 2 pi ft with respect to f, we are finding out the inverse Fourier transform. So if we solve this, if we simplify this further using these steps, we get a complex, here we get it in the Euler's identity we can use, and we can represent it using 2j sine 2 pi ct by j 2 pi t. And we all know that it is nothing but a sync signal. So we can observe a sync signal. Sync signal is having maximum amplitude 1 at 0, and then at all the integers it is having a 0 crossing. So the impulse response, we can say it is a sync function, goes to 0 at all the integer values of the argument. So when 2 pi fct is an integer, it becomes 0. So we have now got that impulse response, how it is there. Then when we consider the ideal reconstructor, that is a window shape filter, when we consider this ideal reconstructor, there are two problems associated with it. One is the problem of stability and another is realizability. So when we consider stability, means what is exactly I want to say, that is when we consider the brick wall response, when we want a brick wall response that is exactly changing at particular frequency, then such systems which provide brick wall response are always unstable. And how we find out the stability? Stability we find out, we are having the bounded input, bounded of that definition all we are having, as well as we are having the equation also to find out the stability. We can take the integration of magnitude of the impulse response. If it is tending towards infinity, then it is providing you the unstable system. And if it is finite, then it is providing you the stable system. Okay, so we have to find out the absolute integral of the impulse response for that. If we find out the absolute impulse response of this sync signal, then we can observe that it is providing us unstable system. How we get that? So if we check the magnitude, then that magnitude comes out to be having such nature, that is reducing in amplitude, and that is the absolute sync signal magnitude of h of t. If we take each segment, consider the lower bound of each area and show that the sum of the areas is divergent, then that shows the instability in the system, and that is due to the brick wall response. So due to the sharp change, it provides us the unstable system. And what we can do for removing this problem? We can go for the margin. So if we consider that the response is slowly changing from maximum to minimum value with some slope, and that is not a sharp rise, that is having some slope, then we can remove this problem. So you can observe here. So this kind of filter which has this has a continuous frequency response, and the margin is governed by the difference between fs and 2fm. So we can observe the difference over here. The cutoff frequency is located here, and there is a smooth fall instead of sharp. Okay, so instead of brick wall, we are having a smooth fall. So that's why the instability problem is removed. Then the another problem is related to this. We consider the magnitude that it is having a constant value for particular range, that is from minus fm to plus fm frequency range. So realizing this, implementing such filter is also a challenge. Okay, we cannot means it is difficult to get the flat region between this minus fm and plus fm, because the flat region brings the irrationality into the response. So what we can do to remove this problem is we can use a filter which varies slowly in the flat region. There is a small change that is not exactly constant, but we can use a filter which is varying very slowly in the flat region. So these two problems are there for the ideal case of reconstruction and can be removed by using the filters such that the smooth fall off is there and smooth variations are there, small variations are there in the flat region. So this is what I understood from the 7th lecture, and thank you for the patient listening. We'll be really grateful if there is any query to answer or any suggestions are there. Thank you, sir.
So very good, Professor Himangi, a very well explained lecture. Very happy to see that you brought out all the points very well. In fact, let me also repeat a few points that you mentioned. So you can stop presenting now. Now, one very good thing that Professor Himangi explained is why you need greater than. In fact, you notice that she answered the question that was raised in the previous lecture. Why do we need Fs to be greater than twice Fm, not equal to? There are two reasons. One is what we talked about in the previous lecture, where you could be affecting a tonal component at frequency Fm. But more important is the reason given by Professor Himangi right now. Even if you don't have tonal components at the edge, if you use an ideal reconstructor, it's going to have two problems. It's not going to be realizable, it's going to be unstable. And to avoid that, it is desirable to have a margin in the drop, margin in the movement from pass band to stop band. And for that margin, you need to provide a gap between Fs minus Fm and Fm. That is the lowest frequency imposter and the highest frequency signal component. That was very well illustrated by Professor Himangi with diagrams and with an explanation. Very well done, Professor Himangi. Thank you so much for your presentation. Any comments?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions on her presentation? Now, I would like to read out an announcement for all of you, which is there in the chat as well. So, those of you who have not filled the attendance, please fill the same using the link which is given there. And this will be factored for certificate generation. So, please make sure that you're marking your attendance in every session. All right. So, any other questions or comments on or inputs on Professor Himangi's presentation? You can also put them in chat if you are unable to use your audio or video. Okay. Now, there's a question by Professor Ananthi on importance of rectangular sampling. Now, what do you mean by rectangular sampling, Professor Ananthi? I think you probably mean sample and hold.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you sample and hold.
Is it related with non-ideal sampling, sir?
Well, it is of course a form of non-ideal sampling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But you see, in rectangular, so what happens when you sample and hold is, you of course get, you get some degree of smoothness because, you continue to hold, and also, you can process that sample in the meanwhile, while it is held. So practically sampling and holding is helpful. But if you look at a sample and hold and try to analyze it, the holding process introduces some distortions. In fact, one can analyze this, when you sample and hold instead of just sample. It's one way to look at it is you're passing the ideally sampled signal through a linear shift invariant system whose frequency response, whose impulse response is just a pulse. That means you're distorting the spectrum, including the basal spectrum, the original signal spectrum, by a sin x by x pattern in the frequency domain. So there is a frequency distortion that a hold introduces. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I have another clarification, sir.
Yes.
Yes, in reconstruction filters in digital communication systems, they are using reconstruction filters or low pass filter. They are using to recover the message signal, right? So why that we can use directly non-ideal sampling reconstruction filters we are studying, right? Practically how to implement that non-ideal case applications like acoustic biomedical instruments or acoustic whenever you are having sensors equipment there and all, how to reconstruct any special filters we are using that in that point of view, sir.
Well, what is the a priori knowledge that you have about the signal there? What is the prior information that you have about the signal?
That is ISI we have stated that the equalizers we have used, sir, in the reconstruction filter. Equalizers used to compensate the ISI components. In the receiver, we can use that particular equalizer filter, right, sir?
Yeah, you see, equalizers are typically used. You see, they are now. What kind of equalizers are they? Channel equalizers?
Yes, sir.
Are being used?
Yes, sir. Channel equalizer. It is a channel equalizer only.
Okay. The channel equalizers are typically used when you want to undo the effect of the channel which is between transmitter and receiver. So if you have some knowledge of the channel, then you undo that effect by using an equalizer.
Yes, sir.
In fact, if you do sample and hold, then that holding distortion would require you to again equalize.
Okay, sir.
Sampling and followed by holding, the holding would introduce some distortion which you would need to equalize, right, in the frequency domain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
And must also note that Professor Hemangi very nicely explained that the ideal reconstructor has a problem of stability and realizability. That is a profound thought. All of you should look at it carefully. And this needs to be brought before a student audience when we teach sampling. All right, now I'm very happy to welcome Group 2 to make a presentation on lecture number 8.
Actually, our group member, Mohammad Abdul Sattar sir, was supposed to present, but as he has not joined, and I had gone through the video lecture, but I had not made any sort of presentation.
Okay, fine.
So I will just, can I describe it orally?
Yes, you can explain it orally.
So lecture number 8 is the simple RC circuit as a reconstructor. So simple RC circuit is R and C connected in the series.
Would you like to use a paper and pencil as you did last time?
Actually, it is mathematical expression.
Okay, doesn't matter. Fine, you can go ahead.
Let us summarize for what I recall from the university.
Yes. Okay.
So RC circuit is a RC circuit as a reconstructor. RC is a simple resistor and capacitor connected in the series. This will act as a reconstructor. So if we look for the frequency response of RC circuit, we can say frequency response is 1/1 plus j tau omega, whereby tau we will say is the time constant of the RC circuit, which is equal to R into C, whereby R is the value of resistance and C is the value of the capacitance. So if you take its magnitude, then we can say, if we sketch the magnitude, then we can say the curve varies very slowly or has lower variation around omega equal to 0 and has very fast variation as omega increases. So that is, moreover, we can say it is to be mathematically verified from the expression actually. So the thing is, reconstructor should be realizable. Then it should have a steep follow for the higher frequencies and flat region around 0 frequency. So these are the things which we are interested for. And what more we do have is a simple reconstructor should not have 3 things. I do remember what I learned from the video. First is the flat region. Second one is the brick wall characteristics, which is also explained by Professor Himangi. That as it is non-realizable or stable, we cannot use those. And the third one is completely zero response after a certain frequency.
That's right.
Yeah, the problem
you
is
cannot
that
have flatness in any of the bands, and you must have a transition band.
yes, sir. The problem is all spectral images, those are generated, will also contribute, and the solution of it is non-ideal sampling.
Yes. So once you have sampled and you try to reconstruct, you cannot really do away with the spectral aliases. You cannot really do. They'll be there in some small measure, but you can make them sufficiently insignificant so that they don't affect your output behavior.
Thank you, sir. That's all from my side.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor. Any questions on this lecture 8? All right, in that case, we'll move on to group 3 and request them to talk about the next lecture, lecture 9.
Sir, good evening, sir. Myself, Ananthi from Tyagaraja College of Engineering, Madurai. Yes, sir. Sir, the lecture 9, it is given as practical sampling and reconstruction of signals. So, according to Shannon sampling theory, the problem of reconstructing a signal from its samples in some shift invariant space, which may or which may not be band limited. So, in applications point of view, if I am seeing the scenario number 1, suppose sensor introduces static nonlinearity before the signal is sampled by a practical ADC, analog to digital converter. You have to develop a theory to perfectly recover a signal within a subspace from its non-ideal samples. So normally we have taken in the reconstruction point of view, we have taken, suppose you are having the spectrum, we have taken the spectrum as triangular spectrum, we have chosen normally message signal spectrum. So we have taken normally triangular spectrum. So here we have why we have chosen triangular spectrum instead. So here we have the low frequencies. The gain is maximum. So that we have if you increase the frequency, and here we have increase the frequency, the spectrum remains, the spectrum the amplitude of the spectrum decreases. So we have chosen this triangular spectrum. And then we are having in the triangular spectrum we have chosen, if you take ideal sampling in all textbooks, signals and systems, communication systems, in all textbooks they are referring the ideal point of view only they are discussing. They are not very much, the people are not very much concentrating on non-ideal sampling point of view. So in all practical applications, the sampling is to be sampling is in terms of only non-ideal thing, non-ideal sampling thing. So we have taken ideal impulses in the time domain. We are taking the sampling is in impulse train we have taken. So if you take ideal sampling in the frequency domain, the spectrum gets repeated, right? We have the replicas of the physical spectrum. Here we have the spectrum, and this will be we have the spectrum gets replicated. The message signal spectrum in frequency domain, it gets replicated. And in the reconstruction, if you choose, suppose you are having low pass filter, if you have a low pass filter, if you do the low pass filter, the low pass filter eliminates the high frequency components. Here we have FS, the sampling frequency according to Nyquist rate. The sampling frequency should be greater than or equal to 2 times FM, so that there is no aliasing is taken place between the spectrum. And in the reconstruction, similarly here also, here if you have the low pass filter, you can reconstruct the you can by means of applying the low pass filter, you can cut out the low pass filter allows the only low frequency component, that is message signal frequency components. So the problem here is that if you here is that in practice we have 3 problems in the physical circuit realization of a sampling system. So these are the ideal cases, right? The sampling signal consists of unit impulses which are physically impossible to generate. Brick wall filter, what we have designed, the low pass filter, is not possible to realize physically. Real signals are not band limited. So what do you mean by that? So that's what a non-ideal sampling in all practical applications. If you take any application, biomedical signals or any applications, any data acquisition system, definitely it is not. The sampling should be a non-ideal in nature. So. So non-ideal sampling doesn't allow carbon copies. So we have to introduce the non-ideal sampling case. So in the lecture number 9, it is given as instead of unit impulse signaling, we have a set of trine pulse, that is rectangular pulse, or say we have represented in terms of P of t. P of t is a pulse, right? Pulse-based sampling is preferable in non-ideal sampling, right? So the step size here is given as 0 to del. The sampling duration is given as Ts. After the second, the signal is repeated. So we have Ts plus, here we have Ts, then here Ts plus delta, and so on. So we have applied complex Fourier series here. Pulse-based sampling is preferred. It is like a sample and hold. It is like a rectangular sampling or pulse-based sampling or thing. So now we are going to apply the complex Fourier series formula. So we have to find the Fourier series coefficient Ck. We are going to represent the sampling with finite duration pulses. A Fourier series coefficient calculation is to be demonstrated. So it is a Fourier series equation, complex Fourier series equation. So 1 by Ts. The sampling duration here is 0 to Ts. Then the pulse is represented as P of t. Then e power minus actually j omega s kt integration with respect to dt. Then this omega s can be replaced as 2 pi by ps. So it is 2 pi fs actually. This angular frequency. Then 2 pi fs. This fs can be, fs is a sampling rate. That is, fs is, we can write it as in terms of sampling duration. Then we have the value is P of t is a pulse representation. The amplitude is kept as 1 here, and the value is the amplitude of the pulses. The rate pulses from 0 to delta only. 0 to delta, the amplitude of the pulse is termed as the pulse value is 1. The amplitude is 1, so that I can replace this. So 1 by Ts. So 0 to del. The amplitude of the pulse is 1. Then I'm writing in terms of sampling duration now. So e power j 2 pi by Ts into kt dt. So integrated. So you'll be having the value as if you integrated. So if k equal to not equal, I'm going to integrate in terms of 2 cases. One is k equal to 0 and another one is k is not equal to 0. The first case is here. I have taken the case of the value is k is equal to k equal to 0 and k is not equal to 0. Ck is a Fourier series coefficient. So just to integration of this equation. So I will get the answer is 1 minus e power minus j 2 pi by ts. The limit is 0 to del. And substitute the limit. So we have rearranging we have this equation. So in terms of sign, in terms of signal, in terms of here it is in exponential signal. So we are rearranging this thing. So just to take e power minus. So to remove this one, e power j into e power b is equal to e power a plus b. So we have e power minus j pi by ts into k delta by 2. So here we are replacing this one. So one is replace this e power minus j theta into e power plus j theta. So e power minus j pi by ts into k delta by 2. Then minus e power minus j. So here e power minus j pi k delta by 2 into e power minus j 2 pi by k delta by 2. So e power minus j
Professor Jayanti, I think you have to take, see, either you take delta by 2 or you take, if you're taking delta by 2, you should leave it as 2 pi there. Or you should write pi and then simply keep delta.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Can I replace the delta alone?
Yeah, you can erase that by delta by 2, you know.
Yes, sir.
Delta. Delta will be correct.
Yes, sir.
You have an eraser also on the side, you know, you can use the eraser also. Whiteboard eraser.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
And use the
And
whiteboard.
finally, yes, sir.
No, on the side you had an eraser. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what. Okay, sir. I will. So now we have. Now you have the here sine pi theta is equal to pi theta you are having. So here e power j theta minus e power minus j theta by 2j. So this thing, right? So this will be assigned as sine theta form. So sine pi theta form. So sine pi theta by sine pi theta by pi theta is sin theta. So we have simple representation. It is sin theta. So e power j theta minus e power minus j theta by 2j is sin theta. So then we have e power delta by 2s. Here we have delta by ts is there. So here, in order to in order to make this particular form sin p theta by pi theta, here we have sin pi k delta by 2. Here we have, there is no delta term here in the denominator. Denominator, there is no delta term. So that's what, multiply delta term in the numerator and the denominator. So we have then delta by ts. Think of k delta by ts. Here we have make some clarifications. Let us sin theta. We are sin pi theta by pi theta format. So multiply delta in the numerator as well as the denominator. So make use of this particular formula, and we have to have this sinc delta by ts. Now thing is that we have to represent the sinc pulse representation. So here we have k here. Just go through whenever this k value, right? So here k delta is equal to 0. So when the 0, whenever you are having at what values of values of k here the 0 will be produced instead. Sinc that is k delta is equal to ts, right? At what values of k, right? So k delta is equal to ts. You have to find that particular value, the zeros will be produced, right? So here k is equal to ts by delta. So we have ts by delta here. Right? Then we have to find this c naught. This is k not equal to 0. We are saying that. So for k equal to 0, we have to apply 0 by 0 form. If you are saying k equal to 0, what will be the value you are going to? This is ck value. This is ck.
So you don't really have to apply 0 by 0 form. You could go to the original integral. In the original integral, one does not use, isn't it? So the original integral can be used for k equal to 0 directly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it is, if you solve this integration, e power ck is equal to e power minus j 2 pi k something. If you substitute 0 here, right? K equal to 0 here in the numerator and in the denominator.
No,
if you substitute
not here, Professor, not here, because here again k equal to 0 will come in the denominator. See, go back to the integral even before that. Even before that, there's an integral, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, there you can substitute k equal to 0.
Okay, sir. So just here we have can we take a hospital rule and 0 by, if you have 0 by 0 form, it is indeterminate form. Yes,
no
sir.
Rule, no L'Hopital's rule. If you put k equal to 0, it becomes a very simple integral, isn't it? PTD.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it's easier to do it that way.
Right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Or a simple integration, we can solve it, right, sir?
Very good. Yes. Of course, you can also do it by L'Hopital's rule by taking limits, but that's not required.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just to integrate this one, you will be getting minus j. Integration with respect to t. So we have 2 pi by ts into k. Then substitute the limit. E power 0 is 1, right, sir? So we have 1 by Ts, 1 by Ts. Here again we have 2 pi by Ts we have, sir. So derivative of numerator and derivative of numerator, differentiation of numerator term and denominator term, that will produce 1 by Ts almost. So we have, am I correct, sir?
Yeah, you can do it either way, by L'Hopital's rule or by direct integration.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we have delta by Ts is very small. So here we have C naught. So just I have draw the similar way. Simples I am going to draw. So this is C naught value, and C1. C naught is a coefficient, and the C1 is first Fourier series coefficient, and C2. Then we have C1. The spacing between the Fourier series coefficient is represented as delta by Ts. The spacing between the Fourier series coefficient is delta by Ts. So this parameter value, this parameter is very small. So delta is not small, means that you have to, in ideal case, in ideal sampling case, you have to multiply the P of T by 1 by delta. In this expression, if you multiply by 1 by delta, if delta equal to 0 almost, so in ideal sampling, multiply P of T by 1 by delta, so this could be cancelled out, right? So the CK value is now like this way. Then what I have understand from this here is that the practical point of view, what I have understand from this lecture means that, so here in ideal sampling, the spectrum is repeated, right? The spectrum is gets replicated, right? Replicated. Sorry, sir. I'm not able to write. Then if you have a rectangular sampling or pulse-based sampling, in frequency pulse-based sampling, here we have one frequency domain representation. Then let us suppose consider this will be the message signal spectrum, right? So let us assume that this will be the message signal spectrum, and this will be the rectangular sampling or a pulse-based sampling. So that frequency domain representation is there. It is in sync. We have got this result. Just to convolve this message signal spectrum, with that of sync-pulse representation. Hence, the answer is given. The spectrum guarantees that there is no aliasing. In the spectrum. You have to recover the original message signal spectrum back. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ananthi. Professor Ananthi has made a very thorough presentation of the case of non-ideal sampling. And of course, she is derived in full detail what happens spectrally when you do non-ideal sampling. Now, one observation from here, when your sampling is non-ideal, your reconstruction is not severely affected. What happens because of non-ideal sampling? In fact, your aliases in some way are suppressed. The same process, you have the aliases created at all multiples of the sampling frequency. But as long as you're following the Nyquist sampling theorem, the aliases are actually suppressed a little bit in comparison to the main lobe, the main original spectrum. So if the non-ideality in the sampling pulse is not a serious issue as far as reconstruction goes. In fact, in a way, we use this for amplitude demodulation. We make use of this for amplitude demodulation. For amplitude demodulation, we use periodic pulses. That's one way to do it. And there the pulses don't have to be exactly impulses. Any kind of periodic pulses would do. And as long as your reconstruction filter does well, you can reconstruct properly. So very well done, Professor Ananthi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I think we are now almost nearing, maybe so we have gone a little past our scheduled time. I think people must be tired. So would you like to have one more presentation or should we conclude the session here today? What is the vote? Let me see on chat what people say. Well, I don't have anybody saying anything on chat. I think let us conclude because I know people must be tired today. It's already, we have had 9 presentations. So we'll have the presentation by group 4 tomorrow. Group 4, are you already ready with your presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm ready, sir.
Okay, perhaps let us have the group 4 presentation then.
Okay, sir. This is the presentation from group 4. In group 4, we have 5 professors. And myself is Dr. P.J.S. Velmurugan, Assistant Professor from Tyagaraja College of Engineering, Madurai. And I'm here to present the lecture 10, which is on applications of Nyquist sampling theorem. So we are going to discuss about amplitude modulations only. So what is amplitude modulations is, so if you want to get amplitude modulation, what we have to do is we have to multiply our message signal x of t with a periodic signal cosine, a high frequency carrier signal. So this is nothing but a high frequency carrier signal. So let we define our p of t is equal to AC cos 2 pi by ts into t, and this is my carrier wave. So in order to get an AM signal, we have to multiply our message signal with the high frequency carrier wave. Here the carrier frequency is 1 over ts. So now if I multiply my x of t with this p of t, I will get this term, and I am rewriting this cos theta into inverse Euler's formula, which is nothing but e power j 2 pi by ts into t plus e power minus j 2 pi by ts into t. So this is my x of t. I can rewrite this expression as like this: x of t into e power j 2 pi by ts into t plus x of t into e power minus j 2 pi by ts into t. So now if you take the Fourier transform for this continuous time signal, what I will get an expression of xs of ohm, which is equal to AC by, so that I'm missing 1 over 2, right? So 1 over 2, so AC by 2. This is nothing but we have to apply frequency shifting property of Fourier transform. So what is a frequency shifting property of Fourier transform is x of ohm minus 2 pi by ts plus x of ohm plus 2 pi by ts. So this is nothing but our AM signal in frequency domain. And if you see the spectrum for this signal, so for example, if you consider a speech signal, the frequency of our speech signal will be ranges from 300 hertz to 3000 hertz. So the Nyquist rate should be greater than 6 kilohertz, right? So here what we are going to do is we are going to take the sampling frequency which is equal to 8 kilohertz, and if you plot the that is, which is nothing but 1 over ts. If I plot the spectrum for this one, I will get 2 components. One is it.
Professor Velmurugan, I think the upper frequency limit for speech is about 4 kilohertz.
Speech.
3000
yes,
kilohertz.
It's okay. Okay.
4 kilohertz.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it is 400 hertz. That is 4k hertz. So we are taking the fs should be equal to 8 kilohertz. Now, if you draw the spectrum for this one, we will get a that is shifting our low frequency into a high frequency region. Right? So the spectrum will be shifted to the high frequency region of fs, which is nothing but 8 kilohertz. So I will get a term like this. Sorry, just and similarly 8, and this is my -4 and minus. So this is nothing but 2 pi into 10 power minus 20 into 10 power 3. So in amplitude modulation, you will get two spectrum. One is at positive frequency, another one is a negative frequency. That is, our low frequency signal is shifted to high frequency signal. And there is a drawback in our amplitude modulation, that is creating a nice sine wave, that is creating this nice sine wave and multiplying this with our message signal is difficult in hardware. So it is very difficult in hardware. So hence we are going to do this process by sampling process. Okay, we are going to do the amplitude modulation with the help of sampling process. So let me understand how to do this one. So in sampling, what we do is we will just multiply our input signal with a train of impulses. A train of impulses. Or you can have or you can multiply our x of t with a train of pulses also. So if you are multiplying with pulse, you have to take a pulse width of del, and the height will be equal to 1 over del. So this is a periodic one. This whatever you are taking, you are either a train of impulses or train of pulses. It is going to be a periodic one. And from Fourier series concept, we know that any periodic signal can be represented by a Fourier series representation. So any periodic signal can be represented in terms of Fourier series. So Fourier series is given by summation k equal to minus infinity plus infinity ck e power j k 2 pi by ts into t, where ck is nothing but our Fourier series coefficient. So now if we multiply this signal x of t with p of t, so you will get a sampled signal. That is, we are trying to pass our signal to a switch. So that will continuously turn on and off. So if I take the Fourier transform for this one, I will get xx of ohm, which is equal to Fourier transform of x of t into p of t. So if I substitute my p of t, which is nothing but summation k equal to minus infinity plus infinity ck e power j 2 pi by ts into t, and I can take this summation as outside, summation k equal to minus infinity plus infinity k, and trying to find the Fourier transform for x of t e power j 2 pi by ts into t. So again, we can use the frequency shifting property here. If I use the frequency shifting property, what I will get, I will get an expression of so I will get an expression of xs of ohm, which is equal to summation k equal to minus infinity plus infinity ck x of o minus 2 pi by ts into k. So which means that my input spectrum, that is spectrum of my message signal, is repeated infinite terms. So if I see the spectrum for this one, I will get a spectrum like this. This is my original x of ohm, and this is shifted to 2 pi by ts. It's my 0, and this is my 2 times 2 pi ts. So it goes on. Similarly, in the left hand side, you will get minus 2 pi by ts, and then minus 2 times 2 pi by ts. Okay. So now what we are going to do is we are trying to do it as an amplitude modulation. In order to do amplitude modulation, what we have to do, we need only the carbon copies of this one. So we need this carbon copies and this one. So in order to extract this carbon copies, what we have to do is we have to pass this spectrum to a band pass filter. You have to pass this to a band pass filter. In case if you take the sampling frequency as 8 kilohertz, so then you will get a and it is very difficult to get construct an ideal band pass filter, because it is impossible to construct an ideal band pass filter. As you see the practical band pass filter, you will get a smooth transition at this edge. So by doing this, we can get back our AM modulated waveform, that is spectrum of AM signal, this one as well as this one. So this is what given in that lecture, sir.
Very good. Yeah, very good.
Yes, yes,
are you done with your presentation?
Yes, sir. I have one more thing that is already covered by Anandi madam. That is ideal, non-ideal sampling. So in non-ideal sampling, if we take the Fourier transform for our train of pulses, we will get a Fourier series coefficient, which is a sync pulse of which will be like we will get a waveform like this: C0, C1, C minus 1, C minus 3, C plus 3, C minus 3.
Yes.
So this has a good for non-ideal reconstruction. So if you take the that is, if I find the Fourier series for train of impulses, which is having a pulse width of del and a period of ts, you will get a Fourier series coefficient like this. So this amplitude decreases in the Fourier series coefficient is very much helpful for the reconstruction of the original signals.
Yeah.
So both the videos, lecture 9 and 10, the both videos will be similar to sir. That's what we have planned. We are from Tyagaraja College of Engineering, myself and Velmurugan sir. Lecture 9, I belong to group number 3. Lecture 10, group number 4. So both videos are similar. So that's what we have planned to derive this one and amplitude modulation this one, sir.
Very
both
nice.
videos similar to each other, sir. That's what we have planned.
Oh, good, good. No, very good. Yeah, nice. So anyway, you're now presented both of them. No, now you're presented both. So very good. Are we done with the presentation then, Professor Velmurugan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have completed my presentation.
Very nice. That was a very nice presentation. So in fact, Professor Velmurugan showed you how you can actually make use of those carbon copies. Is that right, Professor Velmurugan?
Yes,
you can
sir.
actually make use of the carbon copies for amplitude modulation. So in some sense, aliasing can also give you something that you want here, to move the spectrum to another frequency. And we do it in amplitude modulation. Very nice. So very nicely presented, very nicely derived and presented.
Thanks.
So any questions on these two presentations or comments or observations? Okay, I think you must all now be tired. It's the end of the day today. So thank you so much. I'm very happy with the enthusiasm and commitment with which everybody is making a presentation today. We have 2 presentations left from the second cycle, Group 7 and Group 8. Is that right? Group 7, you will now present lecture 11. Is that right, tomorrow?
Yes,
and
sir.
Group 8 will present lecture 12. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll have those presentations tomorrow, and then we will then resume with the third cycle after that. Yes. So thank you so much. We'll conclude the session here today.